Listener supported. WNYC Studios.
Is the word rich something that you would identify with?
Unfortunately, and I mean, it's a mixed thing to say yes to that. Because on the one hand, I guess you're supposed to want to be rich. I think maybe once you are rich, you maybe start to wonder about all the negative connotations that come with that.
This is Opportunity Costs from Death, Sex, and Money.
I had champagne taste on a beer budget.
A series all about class, which we think about a lot.
I feel judged about it
and need to talk about more.
On paper, I was going to become a millionaire.
I'm Anna Sale. About a month ago, we got an email from a college student named Nishant. He's a junior at Berkeley studying electrical engineering and computer science. And as he gets closer to graduating, he's been thinking a lot about his family's class status.
It took me a while to realize how well off my family was and how rare that was, or how lucky we are. And that's something, I guess, kind of in hindsight, I wish I had realized sooner.
Nishant is the oldest of 3 kids. He's originally from a large college town in the Midwest. He didn't want to say exactly where. His mom works as an ophthalmologist, and his dad founded and runs a software company. Nishant told me he first got a sense of how much money his family has when he was around 8 or 9.
I think I was at a summer camp, and it was a summer camp that had there was a day camp option and a residential camp option. It was at the university nearby our home. And I remember I saw that the residential camp was $1,000 or $1,200 a week. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a lot of money. And then Dad came to pick me up in a sports car. And then some of the people in the summer camp were like, oh, wow. I think they said, oh, wow, you're rich. Or, oh, wow, that's a really expensive car. Something like that.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Ferrari.
Nishant's dad, Vic, was the one driving the Ferrari. He didn't feel that comfortable with it either.
Well, my line is, I'm just the valet parking this thing. That's how I tend to get away with it.
And recently, Nishant's noticed that he's trying to get away with hiding their wealth, too. That's why he wrote us. He told us in his email that over winter break, he was in Chicago with friends.
And I hadn't told my friends that we actually had a home in Chicago, and so I had to kind of dance around the facts of that story.
Fibbing a little bit.
Pretty much. I think I did kind of lie to my friends about that, and that's something I do feel kind of bad about.
Some of the ways Nishant talks and doesn't talk about their family's wealth, he learned from his dad.
When we were younger, that Ferrari, it's red, because of course it is.
Why else is there any other color?
And we actually call it the red car. And Dad would say, oh, I'm going to take the red car out or something like that. And so
that was very, very intentional. It wasn't just an oversight. There's, it's a way of referring to this thing that has a lot of preconceived notions that come with it.
Yeah, I think that's a metaphor for kind of the attitude towards expensive things and talking about wealth.
Their family has always been comfortable financially, but not always this wealthy. Vic immigrated from India with his parents when he was 14. Like a lot of his extended family, he went to medical school, but then decided not to do a residency. He founded a software company instead.
I left what was deemed, at least in my family and upbringing, a stable and assured upper-class access by being a practicing physician to sort of try my hand at starting a software company. So I certainly wasn't motivated to do so because I thought that's the way to go make money. It's just something I found myself drawn to. Probably most people would have thought, what a silly career decision to so to speak, maybe even I might have heard these words of giving up on a good career and wasting time and taking on potentially debt and risk and uncertainty in the future to try to do this goofy software thing.
Mm-hmm. Is that something someone said to you or something you heard in your own head?
Yeah, I think Mom might have said that to me.
But Vic's gamble really paid off. He sold his company to a major global corporation. and the family got rich.
We have a lot of financial security, well past anything that is reasonably needed or, frankly, well past anybody's needs to satisfying any series of wants.
That you say your available resources exceed what you could want? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. When you end up having capital that is more than what your monthly needs are and that exceeds what maybe your annual needs are, you start to go after wants and luxuries.
Nishant, how does money work for you right now as a college student?
So my parents pay for tuition and they cover my expenses at school. And I work as a student employee for the university because I'm a teaching assistant. And I've also had some internships in the past, and I'm saving that money. So my earnings basically go into savings.
So you're working, but it's creating a cushion for yourself because you've got the support of your parents. Do you have a credit card from your parents?
Yes.
What are the rules about that?
I don't. I guess maybe my dad will correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think we have we don't have a firm number on budget, or you can only spend so much, or there's this much a month, or something like that. It's more, I think my parents trust me to be responsible, and that definition of responsible is, I guess, kind of implied, and so it does. It's implied basically, by seeing what my family spends money on when we're back home, and not being too ridiculous with things.
So what does that mean? Like if you need to buy a sweater, what's an appropriate budget for a sweater?
I've spent a lot of money on sweaters. Probably dollar amount under $300, but something my uncle once said, that when they were kids, I think they used to shop at, Kohl's or Macy's or like a department store and always go to the sale section and look for things.
Kohl's or Macy's? You got to be kidding me. Kmart or JCPenney's.
Okay. So I guess that's maybe something that I try to do, even if I'm buying expensive clothes. It's try to find still good deals on kind of high quality, nice things that I can appreciate.
And Vic, if I learned like the details of your life, like how you spend your time, what kind of airline seats you sit in, does it look modest, or can you tell that you're wealthy?
Well, I probably walk out of a home that's much larger than average. I probably drive into work in a car that is above average. But that's that's about 10 minutes of experience, and then I probably spend somewhere between 8 and 12 hours out of the day and sitting in an office that is not an office. It's a shared workspace with everybody else.
How many homes do you have?
I want to say 6.
Did you say I want to say because you're not quite sure?
I try not to remember.
How many people know how many homes you own?
Just the family. Well, till now.
Coming up, why Vic thinks having this much isn't always a good thing.
You find yourself having to be less transparent and less honest. You aspire to be an honest person and speak truth, and then you find that this thing can actually be the very reason that you're finding yourself being less truthful.
Vic and Nishant's family experienced a major class shift from having a lot to really having a lot. But their story is not the norm. Overall, social mobility in the U.S. is declining. A 2016 study found that in the last 30 years, it's become increasingly likely that you'll end your career not far from where you started, income-wise. The likelihood that you'll move up, that's gone down. And that's true at all income levels. But a lot of you did tell us about the discomfort you felt when you moved up class-wise, regardless of where you were on the income spectrum when that happened. Holly is a 26-year-old listener from Salt Lake City. She sent in a voice memo about growing up in a family with 10 kids and not much money.
I always knew I was poor. I smelled different than the other kids at school, and I always knew I was one of the poorest people.
Her husband grew up solidly middle class, and together they make more money now than Holly's parents ever hoped to. But she says it doesn't always occur to her that she can actually spend that money.
You don't think about buying a better coffee machine. You don't think about buying a better jacket. You work with what you have until that doesn't work anymore, and you literally cannot fix it or do anything about it, and then you replace it. I'm always surprised by the things people who live either falsely or truthfully in a middle-class life, the things they spend money on. And the things I find myself spending money on are still shocking to me.
On the next and last episode of Opportunity Costs, I talk with a 73-year-old Vietnam vet who's moved up and down class-wise a lot and is okay with where he's landed.
I'm socially lower middle class, economically a bit better than that, or at least I was. Now I'm retired.
What's socially lower middle class mean?
Means the people I hang with. All my friends are bikers and things like that. So, yeah, I don't aspire to move up.
This is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC. I'm Anna Sale. At Berkeley, Nishant is on one of the most economically diverse campuses in the country. It made him curious to find out just where his family fits class-wise. He did some Googling, and he confirmed it. They're in the 1%.
I don't know, 2-3 years ago, stumbled across just like one of those calculators that's like, what is the 1% in your state? And I wanted to see kind of what that number was. I'd also seen a lot of far more people think they are in the middle class than are actually in the middle class, particularly on the upper end. And then I was kind of wondering also, is it accurate to say that my family is upper middle class or not? So then I figured I'd check. I guess I'm pretty clear about saying upper class and not maybe hedging or something. Mm-hmm. I think there's something that feels better about saying, oh, we live an upper middle class lifestyle. But that just might not be accurate.
Vic, how do you think about what you want to communicate to your son as he turns the corner, nears the end of college graduation? What have you told him about what your wealth is going to mean for his financial stability as an adult?
I'm not sure we've talked about it other than indirectly. We've met with investment advisors, and for a long time they keep saying, if you're not careful, the government will take half of this. And I'm not even convinced there's anything wrong with that. It'll get redistributed. But yes, to the extent we are organizing around it, it would be in the context of childcare, health, and education. Those are the three permitted uses of the excess resources.
Did you know this, Nishant?
I knew about kind of saving for education, but not a broader vision or kind of plan.
Have you wondered?
I have. And that's been an interesting thing to think about in terms of my own future goals. The plan for after undergrad for me is to pursue a PhD and then hopefully go into academia and There's some American dream kind of pressure that each generation you do better than the generation that came before you. And you make more money and you have a more financially stable lifestyle, and I don't know, your house is bigger and you have one more car or something like that. And I think I would have to get very, very lucky, and I would have to focus on making a lot of money to be able to accomplish that. And that focus is not one that I want to have.
Well, for us, that's the best use of the excess resources is for Nishant to be able to do exactly that. Because I think it would be a severe waste, to try to bring another dollar into the family wealth pot as the reason to go do something. It'd be horrible to have the option of how they want to spend their time be closed to them because they got to meet this other high financial bar of income.
And you worry that you've created that high bar, that you've created that burden by the amount of money that you've made.
You can't avoid it. It goes with the territory. It's one of the trade-offs. It takes active energy to not feel that pressure.
When do you feel that pressure? Do you feel when you're socializing with other people who've done quite well, with other wealthy people, does that sense of competition kick back in?
I think for me it would. If anything, I think, my wife helps make sure that we kind of don't spend our time all there. And that environment doesn't bring out the best in me, as she puts it, because it is that competitive spirit that starts to come in and sort of suddenly the Joneses are the billionaires next door kind of thing because you worked hard to get next door to them.
And she's pinpointed that for you, it doesn't bring out the best in you. So she wants to help control that social environment.
Yes.
How do you two talk about giving away money?
Well, I guess Nishant told us, if this tax reform thing goes through and this serves as an advantage to you, every one of those dollars has to be given away, right? And to both my wife and I. And so sometimes we talk about it very explicitly.
Huh. And did you think that's a fair principle when your son said that to you?
Totally. Actually, yeah.
Did you know that you were shifting your dad around, Nishant?
I certainly have been trying. I had a sense of that, yeah.
And my wife, we talk about the notion of giving away money isn't easy either. That's some of the coolest things that have happened is how to do that one with grace and for things that maybe matter to you, but maybe it shouldn't be things that matter to you. Maybe it should be things that are most needy out there. But we largely have tried to give away most of these things as anonymous donors for the last 15 some years.
Oh, really?
Or 20 years.
Because it's less complicated.
It's not just complicated. It's a way to think about understanding yourself, to say how much of this giving is ego-driven, to say I want to be on the platinum sponsor recognition plaque, or am I doing it because I actually this issue resonates with me? And so, at least for my wife and I, giving anonymously is a great, simple way of focusing on the real thing. People of a certain class, it's no different than a red car. It's the biggest giver in the community merit badge.
Nishant, how do you think going forward you're going to balance social comfort with being honest about the kind of wealth that you come from?
Well, I would say situations like the uncomfortable discussion with my friends where I did kind of feel like I was lying to friends. That doesn't happen all that often, and I try to be pretty honest about that and appreciative, pretty much so long as it wouldn't be something maybe where honesty wouldn't be something too ridiculous, like saying there's a whole nother property that I haven't told you about.
But in some ways, one can go overboard. It shouldn't be an issue. And so one can overcorrect and be overly self-conscious about this thing, which is, I think, it's just stuff. It's literally circumstantial. One shouldn't walk around thinking, "Ooh, I'm from privilege," or "I have this or that." And I think that's what you're kind of saying is.
Well, I think I'm trying to avoid people thinking of me that way. I think that's the primary thing, is that someone maybe who doesn't know me that well or something doesn't think of Nishant as that rich kid blank something. And that's, I think, the thing. That's the thing that makes me uncomfortable.
Sure.
And that's the thing I'm maybe trying to avoid.
And Vic, it's interesting to me that you've become wealthy through your own work and through what you've earned, and you still seem to have quite an ambivalence about it.
It's hard because I think you're putting your finger on, I think, interesting tension. When you think, especially the American ethos maybe of the self-made man or self-made woman, I think we celebrate that. And I think I, along with most people, subscribe to this idea. You work hard and you go out there and, potentially good things happen. And I think all of that is good. And well, it's, I immigrated here, and it's almost like a fairy tale kind of thing. And I was thinking about this, that, in fairy tales, it's a little easy because, when Cinderella gets ahead, so to speak, it's always Cinderella's surrounded by mean stepsisters and a mom and an environment that wasn't helping, and it was unfair. So when you arrive upon some really awesome destination, you're supposed to sort of go, well, they deserve it, and the other people were mean. And I think the reality is that, at least in our case or my case, you find yourself here, but along the way, they weren't mean people. In fact, it's because of all the people that were around you that you got here, and not everybody's at the same place. And so you're left wondering about that.
That's Vic and Nishant, a father and his son. This series, Opportunity Costs, is produced in collaboration with BuzzFeed News. All this week, you can read personal essays and hear conversations with our listeners about class and money in America today. Our website is deathsexmoney.org/class. Death, Sex, and Money is a listener-supported production of WNYC Studios in New York. I'm based at the Center for Investigative Reporting in Emeryville, California. Our team includes Katie Bishop, Annabelle Bacon, Emily Botine, and Andrew Dunn. And thanks to Dan DeZula for his help on this series. Our interns are Catherine Hsu and Angeli Mercado. The Reverend John Delore and Steve Lewis wrote our theme music. We're at Death, Sex, Money on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Go find us there. Vic still has that Ferrari he drove to Nishant's summer camp, but he thinks a little differently about it now.
You don't even realize that you don't need something till you have it.
Wait, you don't realize you don't need something until you have it?
Yeah, it's the saddest thing that, a lot of these things for many of us who thought maybe more is more, there's a point at which more is not more, and that point isn't some absolute amount, it's a way of thinking. You can have one red car, and the second red car doesn't give you the same joy as the first one.
I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from WNYC.